The red dust of Erythra Prime blew across the small colony like a persistent ghost. Crumbling buildings, once proud symbols of human ambition, now crouched under the weight of despair. The sky was streaked with strange, greenish clouds, reflecting the eerie light of the distant star, casting long shadows over the settlement. In the distance, jagged mountains loomed like silent sentinels, and between them, the faint hum of alien ships echoed across the barren plains. Inside the main command center, Governor Salon stared at the holographic projection of the colony. Tiny red dots blinked ominously on the map, each marking a Shalrak attack force. The Shalrak, a species whose reputation for violence had spread across human space, were relentless. Their ships moved with terrifying precision, their ground troops fast and unyielding. "This is worse than we imagined," Salon muttered, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "They've cut off the eastern supply route. If the northern barricades fall, the entire colony is doomed." Beside him, Commander Riel, a tall, stern man with a face lined by years of conflict, shook his head. "We've already lost half of the outposts. Our weapons aren't enough. We can't hold them without help." Outside the command center, the sounds of chaos filled the colony. Alarms rang across the settlement as Shalrak raiders struck with brutal efficiency. Human defenders ran through the dusty streets, trying to hold back the alien forces. Explosions rocked the buildings, sending plumes of dust into the air. The colony's limited defense drones whirred overhead, firing energy pulses. But against the Shalrak's advanced weaponry, they were little more than a distraction. In a quiet corner of the command center, Lena Kaur hunched over a table cluttered with schematics and blueprints. She was young, barely 23, but her mind was sharp. As an engineer, she had spent years studying the colony's infrastructure, always dreaming of ways to improve it. Now, those dreams felt like the last hope for survival. Her fingers traced the lines of an old emergency defense system. "If we can reroute the energy through the terrain sensors and create traps," she murmured, "we might be able to slow them down long enough to survive." Riel glanced at her. "It's risky. Some of those systems haven't been used in decades. They might fail entirely." Lena looked up, determination in her eyes. "I don't care. It's either we try, or the Shalrak wipe us out completely. We can't wait for heroes who might never come." Her words echoed the silent hope that had been planted in the hearts of the colonists. For months, rumors had spread of a group known as the Deathworlders, humans bred and trained to survive the deadliest planets in the galaxy. They were said to be unstoppable, capable of facing threats that would destroy ordinary humans without effort. But whether they existed or were only a legend, no one knew. Meanwhile, in the outer reaches of human space, beyond the borders of the known colonies, whispers of the Shalrak attacks had reached other systems. Communication channels buzzed with urgent requests for assistance. Distress signals broadcast across the void. The colonists of Erythra Prime had done everything they could. Now, they had no choice but to cry out to the galaxy for heroes. Back on Erythra Prime, panic had begun to take root. Families huddled in shelters, children clinging to parents, while the older colonists prepared for what might be their final stand. Some tried to maintain normal routines, but the fear was inescapable. Even the strongest among them felt a shiver of doubt. Could humans really survive this? As Lena worked on the defense schematics, she was joined by Tavik, a young scout, who had just returned from a patrol. His uniform was torn, and dirt streaked his face. "They've taken the eastern ridge," Tavik reported, his voice shaky. "We barely escaped. If we don't get reinforcements, we'll lose the outer settlements by tomorrow." Lena nodded, her mind racing. "Then, we have to make the most of what we have. I'll need volunteers to set up traps and reroute power. Every able-bodied person counts." Word spread quickly. By nightfall, small groups of colonists gathered in the makeshift workshops and command rooms, eager to help. They were farmers, engineers, teachers, and laborers, not soldiers, but under Lena's guidance, they became something stronger. They were humans fighting for their survival. And that determination, she realized, could be a weapon even more powerful than lasers or drones. As the colony prepared for the next wave of attacks, the sky erupted with movement. Shadows of Shalrak ships passed over the settlement, and beams of energy lit the night. Explosions tore through the landscape, and the ground shook beneath the force of alien technology. Amid the chaos, a small communications relay crackled to life. A distorted voice filtered through the static. Distress. Erythra Prime. Send. Help. Governor Salen grabbed the receiver. Yes, yes! We need immediate assistance. Our colony is under attack. The voice on the other end paused, then replied in a calm, almost clinical tone. Help. Maybe. En route. Stand by. The message ended abruptly. Silence filled the command center for a moment before Riel slammed his fist on the table. That could mean anything. We have to act now. Waiting for help could kill us all, but even as he spoke, Lena's mind wandered. What if it was true? What if the legends of the Deathworlders were real? What if help really was coming? She pictured them humans unlike any she had seen, hardened by survival on worlds where death was a constant companion. Could they arrive in time? Could they save the colony that was already on the brink of destruction? The next morning, the Shalrak struck again. This time, their assault was coordinated and overwhelming. They pushed the colonists back, forcing them into the central district. Lena, Tavik, and the volunteers worked frantically, activating hidden traps and rerouting power to defensive turrets. They slowed the Shalrak advance, but only barely. During a brief lull in the fighting, Lena climbed to the top of a damaged watchtower to survey the battlefield. Smoke rose from the shattered eastern ridge, and the Shalrak moved with terrifying coordination. Yet, in the midst of fear, she noticed something extraordinary: human ingenuity in action. Colonists had fashioned makeshift barricades, improvised weapons, and clever distractions. Even ordinary humans, pushed to the edge, could become extraordinary. Her hope was reignited. If humans could do this under pressure, what could they achieve with proper warriors by their side? Her thoughts returned to the Deathworlders. Legends said they had survived planets with acid rains, gravity so strong it crushed bones, and predators so lethal that even the strongest soldiers fell in moments. If they existed, there was no force in the galaxy that could match them. The thought filled Lena with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Hours passed, and the Shalrak regrouped for another strike. Lena and her team prepared a new trap, a series of concealed mines and energy pulses designed to funnel the aliens into a narrow valley. It was dangerous work, and several volunteers were injured, but they pressed on, knowing that delay could mean death. As night fell, the colony held its breath. The Shalrak ships circled overhead, their lights cutting through the red dust. Lena watched, heart pounding, as the first wave approached the trap. She activated the system, and explosions lit the valley, sending the aliens into disarray. The colonists cheered, their morale lifted by this small but meaningful victory. Yet, despite the temporary success, the reality remained grim. The Shalrak were relentless, and without reinforcements, the colony could not hold forever. Lena knew that tonight was only a reprieve, not a victory. In the quiet aftermath, Lena returned to the command center. Governor Salan and Commander Riel were reviewing reports of the attack, their faces drawn with worry. "We can't survive much longer like this," Salan said quietly. "We need help, and we need it now." Lena took a deep breath. "Then, maybe we shouldn't just wait for help. Maybe we should call out for the heroes we've only heard about." Riel raised an eyebrow. "The Deathworlders? You mean the legends?" "Yes," Lena said firmly. "Even if they're just stories, we need to try. We need to send the message. If there's even a chance they exist, we have to reach them." Salan hesitated, then nodded. "Prepare the signal. Let the galaxy know that Erythra Prime calls for heroes." As the distress signal was transmitted into the void, Lena stood silently, gazing at the night sky. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between stars, the Deathworlders might be listening, and if they were real, perhaps humanity's last hope was on its way. The wind swept through the colony, carrying dust and whispers of fear, hope, and courage. In that moment, Lena realized something important. Legends were born from truth, and the courage of ordinary humans could awaken the extraordinary. Tomorrow, the Shalrak would strike again. But tonight, humanity had sent its call across the stars, and somewhere in the vast galaxy, the Deathworlders might already be moving, drawn by the cry of a colony that refused to die. The sky over Erythra Prime burned with strange light as dawn broke. The Shalrak had not stopped their attacks during the night. Fires still smoldered across the colony, and the distant mountains echoed with the hum of alien engines. The colonists were exhausted but resolute, working tirelessly to repair barricades, tend the wounded, and maintain what defenses they could. Lena Corps moved through the command center, issuing orders and adjusting the defensive grid. Her hands were blackened with soot, and her uniform was torn. But her eyes were bright with determination. She paused to look out at the horizon. A glimmer of light flickered among the Shalrak ships, small but steady. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be? She whispered to herself. In the distance, a fleet appeared, moving with fluid precision across the sky. These were no ordinary human ships. They were larger, heavily armored, with angular designs that gleamed in the rising sun. Shadows stretched across the desert as they descended toward the colony, and the Shalrak paused, their formations disrupted by the unexpected arrival. Governor Salon rushed to the observation deck. What is that?" he asked, awe and disbelief mixing in his voice. From the ships, figures began to descend. They were humans, but unlike any the colonists had ever seen. Tall, muscular, and wearing adaptive armor that shifted with the terrain, they moved with grace and lethal precision. Their eyes were sharp, scanning the battlefield, and their expressions carried confidence that no ordinary human could have in the face of the Shalrak. "They're the Deathworlders," Lena breathed. The legends were real. The Deathworlders landed strategically, forming a protective perimeter around the remaining colonists. Their weapons hummed with advanced energy, and their movements were a seamless blend of speed, strength, and strategy. Where ordinary humans might falter, they advanced with certainty. Commander Riel met one of the Deathworlders, a man with close-cropped hair, a scar across his left cheek, and eyes that seemed to pierce through the soul. "I am Jarek Thorne," he said, his voice calm and firm. "We've heard your call. Show us your situation." Selen quickly explained the colony's predicament, the Shalrak attacks, and the damage inflicted over the past weeks. Jarek listened without interruption, nodding occasionally. "Your people are strong," Jarek said at last. "But strength alone will not survive here. You must adapt. You must fight smart. We will teach you." Lena felt a surge of hope. For the first time since the attacks began, the impossible seemed possible. The Deathworlders immediately began organizing the colonists. They trained them in new tactics, using the terrain to their advantage. Small squads were formed to guard critical points, while others prepared traps and decoys. Lena worked closely with Jarek, helping him understand the colony's layout and defensive capabilities. By nightfall, the first joint operation was ready. Lena, Jarek, and a team of Deathworlders and trained colonists moved quietly toward a Shalrak forward base on the outskirts of the colony. Their goal was to sabotage the alien energy cores, weakening the Shalrak before the next wave of attacks. The journey was perilous. The team moved under the cover of darkness, weaving between craggy outcroppings and rocky valleys. Every shadow seemed alive, and every whisper of wind could hide a Shalrak scout. Lena's heart pounded, but she forced herself to focus. She had never fought in battle before, yet she felt the adrenaline of survival sharpen her senses. Jarek moved beside her, silent but alert. "Stay close," he whispered. "Follow my lead, and trust in your instincts." When they reached the base, they paused to survey it. The Shalrak guards moved with calculated precision, but there were patterns, weaknesses in their formation. Lena noticed a narrow supply corridor running along the edge of the base. If they could get there, they could plant the explosives without alerting the majority of the guards. The plan was risky, but the Deathworlders thrived on risk. Jarek led the team through a series of shadows and crags, each step measured, silent. Lena's hands shook slightly as she placed the charges on the energy cores, but Jarek's calm presence steadied her. Suddenly, a Shalrak scout appeared, its green eyes glowing in the darkness. Lena froze. Jarek moved instantly, taking the alien down with a precise strike before it could raise the alarm. The rest of the team followed, and in a tense few minutes, the explosives were set. "Time to move," Jarek said. The team retreated, but the Shalrak soon realized the sabotage. Alarms blared, and the night erupted into chaos. The team fought their way back, using traps and terrain to slow the Shalrak pursuit. Lena marveled at the Deathworlders' skill, how they seemed to anticipate every move, turning danger into an advantage. When they returned to the colony, the results of their mission were clear. The Shalrak were disoriented, their energy cores damaged, and their coordinated attacks faltering. For the first time, the colonists tasted victory, however small. Yet the celebrations were tempered by reality. The Shalrak would regroup, and the colony was still vulnerable. Lena knew this was only the beginning. Over the next days, the Deathworlders trained the colonists tirelessly. Farmers became scouts, engineers became frontline defenders, and teachers became strategists. Each day, the colony grew stronger, more capable, more dangerous to the Shalrak. Lena discovered reserves of courage and ingenuity she never knew she had. During one training session, Jarek pulled her aside. "You have a gift," he said quietly. "You see patterns, anticipate outcomes. You could lead squads in the field." Lena shook her head. "I'm just an engineer. I don't know how to fight like you." "Fighting isn't always about strength," Jarek replied. "It's about thinking, adapting, and using what you have. That is what makes humans extraordinary." His words resonated deeply with Lena. She realized that the legends of the Deathworlders were not just about physical superiority, they were about mastering fear, using intellect and instinct to survive, and inspiring others to rise above limits. The next Shalrak assault was the largest yet. Hundreds of ships descended from the sky, their weapons blazing. But the colony was ready. Lena coordinated the defenses, guiding colonist squads to intercept, trap, and disable alien forces. Deathworlders led key strikes, neutralizing Shalrak command units and providing critical support. The battle raged for hours. Dust and smoke filled the air, explosions shook the ground, and the screams of combat echoed across the colony. Lena fought alongside her friends, her heart pounding with terror and exhilaration. Every move mattered. Every decision could save lives. By the end of the night, the Shalrak were forced to retreat. Their formations shattered, their morale shaken. They fled back to the mountains. For the first time, Erythra Prime stood undefeated. The colonists cheered, hugging friends and family. Lena and Jarek watched from the command center, observing the transformation of the people. Ordinary humans, once terrified and scattered, had become a force capable of standing against an alien menace. "You see that?" Jarek asked, his voice steady. "They fought because they had to, but they survived because they believed they could. That is humanity." Lena nodded, awestruck. "And we've only begun. With your guidance, we could survive anything." Jarek smiled faintly. "Perhaps. But the greatest strength lies within them. They needed only a spark to ignite it." As dawn broke again over Erythra Prime, the colony began rebuilding. Homes were repaired, barricades strengthened, and weapons replenished. The Deathworlders continued training, preparing for the next inevitable attack. Lena felt a deep sense of purpose, knowing that she and her fellow colonists were no longer helpless. Somewhere beyond the mountains, the Shalrak were regrouping. But now, when they looked at Erythra Prime, they would see not a frightened colony, but a resilient, united people. Humans had faced impossible odds and survived. And with the Deathworlders by their side, they were no longer just victims. They were warriors, ready to fight for their home, their families, and their future. The sky above shimmered with the first light of morning, and Lena knew that this was the beginning of something extraordinary. The Deathworlders had arrived, legends made real, but even more important, humanity itself was awakening. The morning sun rose over Erythra Prime, casting long shadows across the dusty colony. The air was tense. After days of fierce skirmishes, the Shalrak had regrouped and were preparing for an all-out assault. Their fleet darkened the horizon, hundreds of ships moving with terrifying coordination. The ground shook as massive dropships descended, spilling alien soldiers in precise formations. Inside the command center, Lena Kor and Commander Riel stood beside Jarek Thorne, watching the unfolding storm. The colony's defenses were ready, trenches were dug, barricades reinforced, and traps carefully positioned across strategic points. Energy turrets glowed in the early light, and every able-bodied colonist had a weapon in hand. Jarek's eyes scanned the battlefield. They expect us to break. They think fear will win. They do not understand humans. His voice carried a quiet intensity. Today, we will show them why humanity survives, even on death worlds. Lena's heart raced. She had come a long way from the young engineer hiding in the command center. Now she was a leader, coordinating squads of colonists alongside the Deathworlders, using strategy and ingenuity to hold back an enemy far stronger than they were. The first wave of Shalrak dropped into the central district. They charged with brutal speed, energy weapons firing in arcs of green light. But this time, the colonists did not panic. Lena's squads had set traps, ambush points, and choke points. Explosions erupted, sending aliens tumbling into pits or colliding with barricades. Human ingenuity turned the landscape into a weapon. Jarek moved like a shadow through the battlefield, cutting down Shalrak soldiers with precision strikes. Beside him, Deathworlders coordinated attacks, drawing the aliens into controlled chaos. Lena directed colonist squads, guiding them with calm authority. Farmers became snipers, engineers rigged energy traps, and teachers organized defensive formations. Hours passed, and the battle intensified. The Shalrak adapted quickly, but so did the humans. Every failure became a lesson. Every victory strengthened morale. Lena saw the colonists fighting not just for survival, but for pride. Each human who held the line, who saved a comrade, became part of a force that even the Shalrak could not underestimate. At the edge of the battlefield, Lena spotted a critical target. The Shalrak command ship, a massive hovering fortress coordinating the attack. If destroyed, the enemy's forces would falter. She turned to Jarek. "We need a strike team," she said. "We take the command ship, and the battle could turn in our favor." Jarek studied her. "It is dangerous, but it could work. Are you ready to lead?" Lena nodded. "We have to do this. For the colony." Together, they formed a strike team composed of Deathworlders and the most skilled colonists. Each member carried specialized equipment, improvised weapons, and unshakable determination. The team moved through smoke and debris, avoiding Shalrak patrols and using every shadow for cover. When they reached the command ship's landing area, Lena's hands shook with anticipation. She had never faced such danger before, yet a strange calm settled over her. This was the moment to prove that humanity was not weak, that ordinary humans could rise to extraordinary challenges. The team launched a coordinated assault. Deathworlders engaged the guards directly, drawing fire and clearing paths. Colonists used traps and improvised weapons to disable security systems and cover advances. Lena herself climbed to the ship's entrance, planting charges that would breach the hull. Suddenly, a Shalrak commander appeared, towering and fearsome, energy blade crackling in hand. Lena froze for a heartbeat, fear threatening to overtake her. But then she remembered Jarek's words. Fighting is not only about strength, it's about thinking, adapting, and using what you have. With quick thinking, Lena lured the Shalrock into one of the energy traps set by the colonists. The alien stumbled, caught in a controlled explosion that sent it sprawling. She rushed forward, joining Jarek and the team inside the command ship. The interior was a maze of corridors and alien technology. Lena and the others moved with precision, disabling systems, planting explosives, and coordinating with the colony's defense forces outside. Communication was key. Every action sent waves through the battlefield, weakening the Shalrock's control. Finally, they reached the core of the ship, a massive chamber filled with pulsing energy nodes. Lena placed the final charges, her hands steady now, guided by a combination of fear, courage, and determination. "Everyone out!" Jarek commanded. The team raced back through the corridors, fighting off the last Shalrock defenders. As they emerged into the open, the ship shook violently. The charges detonated, ripping the command ship apart in a brilliant explosion. Outside, the Shalrock forces faltered. Their communication and coordination were gone, leaving them disorganized and vulnerable. Colonist squads, led by Deathworlders, pressed the advantage, driving the aliens back toward the mountains. For the first time, the Shalrock retreated, their forces scattered, their morale broken. The colony of Erythra Prime had survived. In the aftermath, Lena surveyed the battlefield. The colony was battered, but alive. Humans were everywhere helping the wounded, rebuilding defenses, and celebrating their hard-won victory. She saw faces once filled with fear now shining with pride. Every person had contributed. Every action mattered. Jarek approached her, his expression approving. "You led well. Humanity is stronger than even you realize. Today, you did more than survive, you proved that ordinary humans can stand against the impossible." Lena smiled, exhausted but elated. "We didn't do it alone. The Deathworlders, they taught us how to fight, how to survive. But the courage, that came from all of us." Jarek nodded. "Exactly. You were the spark, Lena. The people followed because they believed in themselves. That is the true power of humanity." Governor Salon approached, shaking his head in disbelief. "I never imagined we could hold out against them. I thought we were finished. But you've shown me we are stronger than we ever knew." Round, the Deathworlders began preparing to leave. Their work here was done, but they did not vanish without words of wisdom. "Remember this," Jarek said to the gathered colonists. "The galaxy is full of challenges. You have survived today because you refused to give up. Humanity has a unique strength. When pushed to the edge, we rise. Never forget that. Protect each other. Adapt. Fight. And above all, believe in yourselves." As the Deathworlders departed, their ships rising into the sky and disappearing among the stars, Lena and the colonists stood together, looking toward a future they had once feared was impossible. They had faced a deadly enemy, survived, and learned that even ordinary humans could achieve extraordinary feats. Lena felt a deep sense of pride and purpose. She knew that the colony would rebuild stronger than ever, and that the lessons learned in battle would carry forward. The Shalrock might return, or other dangers might arise. But the people of Erythra Prime had discovered something greater than fear. The power of humanity united. Days passed, and the colony slowly returned to life. Crops were replanted, homes repaired, and the energy systems restored. Children played in the streets once more, under the watchful eyes of parents who now carried a quiet confidence. Lena walked through the settlement, observing the changes. Ordinary humans had become heroes, not because of legendary warriors alone, but because they had found courage within themselves. She knew that the story of this battle would spread across the galaxy, a testament to what humanity could achieve when pushed to its limits. As night fell, Lena looked up at the stars, thinking of the Deathworlders and the legends that had become reality. Somewhere out there, other colonies might be crying for help, facing impossible odds, and now she knew the truth. Humanity could survive, Humanity could fight back, and humanity could rise to any challenge. The red dust of erythroprime settled over the colony once more, but this time, it was no longer a symbol of despair. It was a reminder of resilience, courage, and the extraordinary potential that lay within every human being. And in the quiet moments before sleep, Lena whispered to herself, "We are humanity. We are strong, and we will endure."